be particular about that. We can also just like catch up for a bit
I
first.
know, dude. I know. I've missed you like crazy.
Dude, I don't think we've actually like done a call since before the old storm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been that long. There's like so many people in my life that I haven't talked to since before then.
I'm gonna
Found
have
it.
to- Nice. I'm gonna have to like really try not to think about the fact that it's being recorded because I want to just like be real about
Yeah. Let's just be real. And then
what's
we
up.
can edit. Or you can edit, or we could just never release this.
Yeah,
But then it could be a record for us, you know?
that's true. That's true.
Because a lot of times I do feel like we talk about on our unrecorded. I think this is the paradigm shift. Recorded, but not for the public.
Hmm.
Because then we can go back and look at it.
It's very interesting. I was just talking with Upcycle about we did a recording yesterday, and one of the things that he mentioned as a defining feature, and watching it back, I was like, here's what I think defines TLC. I was like, wow, dude, as somebody who talks so much about definition, like I've posted a bunch of videos about like, don't be so strict in your definitions. Yeah. Um, but anyway, one of the things that he mentioned was the the asynchronous nature of DLC, such
Yeah.
that you can like go away from it and come back and like there's text chats going on in the background and like people post videos and people watch them way later. And
Yeah.
that's really an interesting thing. But it also makes me think about how I think there's something that's very odd or like not dangerous or odd or perhaps dangerous about the fact that like or just noteworthy at least about the fact that things are now recorded and like there forever. It's like that's super not normal. You
Well,
know?
if you're a heathen or a pagan, it's not
Yeah.
normal,
Yeah.
because you can hide from the gods, but you can't hide from the
Well,
Alpha and
uh,
Omega, baby.
but I mean, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like for us normies, us non-theophanized
Who's
humans.
us?
Uh, you know, like I don't know the fact that
Brother, are you confessing that you often forget that the presence of God is with you at all times?
no, I'm saying that even if God knows who I am, even if God knows that that was the old me, somebody
I'm
else,
doing a rude thing. I'm
some
doing a rude thing where you mentioned something that's slightly something that I've been wanting to talk to you about for a long time. And so I was like using it as a joke to get you to talk about the thing that I wanted to talk about, even though it wasn't exactly what you were saying.
yes. My dad just wait. What is this shift that you speak of? The
Well, so it's asynchronous that
Mhm.
our things are being recorded. And
I'll
I was
record
kind of
that.
like, I took the opportunity to make a joke like, well, God never forgets it. God's always listening, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But it recently did strike me. Um, and it's a great comfort, but it's also a great help when I'm being self-sabotaging.
Mhm.
And
I think that's really the key point is that if everybody could see us as God sees us, you know, then it's like,
yeah, well,
like,
the point
yeah.
that I was just it wasn't even a I mean, you took it a step further and see God like seeing ourselves as God sees us, but just the fact of always being seen, and in some points in my life that was a horror, like I felt like I needed some privacy from God, like please just give me. It felt like my parents who were always trying to like barge in on my shower time or something. It's kind of weird.
Mhm.
Um, but then recently, it's just been I find my here's what it is. I find myself remembering that God's watching me right now,
Mhm.
and that He knows what I'm thinking. Right, that it's not like I'm gonna meet God one day and I'm gonna catch Him up on my life story.
Mhm.
And if I do, then it'll be like because He just wants to hear it again or hear. He likes hearing me tell it. Like I
Mhm.
like hearing my wife tell some stories.
Mhm.
But it's like if that moment happens, it will be because I've forgotten, not because He's forgotten. Right.
Mhm.
Um, but there is also an idea that He forgets our sins, which is very interesting.
Mhm.
David asks that his iniquity be forgotten um, in a psalm. But yeah, yeah, like I guess I was thinking of it in the sense of like I'm really trying my hardest to do good at work and to really like because the hurricane did two things. One, it like basically made catching up not going to happen. But that also gave me a little bit of a break because it's like there's a lot of things that I had not been keeping up with completely. I kind of overwhelmed myself in a lot of ways and had just not had done a good job of like time management during the summer and organization and all this stuff. And then this hurricane happens when I like the week that I had like planned out to kind of like cram basically last minute all of my like uh admin work basically.
Mm.
And so then this hurricane comes through. There's a whole lot of crazy stuff with the hurricane that you'll love to hear, um but this was one of them. And so I've been having to work, which is very weird to kind of come from the headspace of state of emergency. We're still kind of in that. Like I have to boil my water, um, and stuff like that. And they tell us like you have to boil it like twice, and then they still don't recommend ingesting it. It's like, okay, why am I boiling it? But I think the boiling it is even just for like washing dishes and stuff. So we've got like dirty dishes in the house. Like it's been crazy. But what
Yeah.
was I gonna say? Um, but
And
yeah,
that,
going back to work was has been really weird, and I've been really trying to like kind of just trust the process in a way, and just be like, okay, what is God trying to teach me in two things? One, my dislike of my job, but then two, like my unwillingness to kind of give it my all because I don't like it. Um, and like so, I have those two kind of things to figure out, which is like one, why don't I like this job? So like, do I not like it because I'm not doing good at it, or am I not doing good at it because I don't like it, or am I both not doing good at it and I don't like it, and I don't like it even more than I would normally not like it because I'm not doing good at it, and I'm not doing as good as I could because of all this bullshit that I've kind of set up for myself. Um, and that was kind of the like message, I guess, in response was just kind of why are you worrying so much? Don't you know I'm always watching? And so that was just kind of like, and it was a very weird shift because it kind of felt like I'll come out for a smoke break like this, and I'll be like, okay, I need to get back inside, need to do like get this, and this done, and I feel that resistance, and I'm like, I hate my job. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to go stare at my phone or like watch a TLC video or play a game on my phone or all this bullshit, and then or I like spiritually bypass and just like think about the things above and neglect the promises that I've made on this earthly plane. And so yeah, there's a lot of like twistedness in there, but it's for some reason just like the idea that just God's watching is like very interesting. It's like kind of it's one of those simple truths that most Christian people learn when they're first, even non-Christian people they know that about God, Santa Claus, like he's always watching. But it's I think it's very interesting as someone who's known that his whole life to kind of still find moments where I remember, oh wait, I've forgotten that he was watching me. I forgot he was here. Which to forget he was here means that I forgot I was here, right?
mm,
Because he didn't go anywhere.
mm. Yes, I do. I do appreciate. I do honor that. That angle of like, and particularly, I think I also like the idea of the presence of God. Like, th this idea that God is always at hand, and it's like
Yeah.
a.
Oh, that's
And,
huge. Yeah. Sorry. Keep going, but it is huge. That's a good thing to add because it's not just that he's watching, but he's with us. Yeah. It's
yeah,
Emmanuel, God with us. Yeah.
yeah,
Good.
and
Good.
like,
Good.
um, and as it relates to the uh the technoverse, though. I think it's like it's interesting to see how like there's almost like I remember there was a couple videos I've um there be a couple videos in the ether somewhere that
Also, at the same time.
My bad.
I still don't know why,
Yeah, so
dude.
I know I'm just overwhelmed, and it's also that I don't want to, I'm jumping the gun, which is not, and I'm creating false realities as I speak.
No need to bring
Heavens.
weapons into this.
No, yes. So
Don't
anyway,
do that.
okay, okay.
Jonathan, don't bring
No,
in false reality.
yeah, no, no twisting reality. No twisting reality.
Bad
Unintentional.
wizard. You're a
Unintentional.
very naughty wizard, Jonathan. You've been a very naughty wizard. Is that YouTube is trying to tell us something. You must
Okay.
have been a very naughty wizard as of
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking
late.
about now as I try and say, okay, we'll get to that part. All right. So anyway, I was just to be clear, I stumbled because I don't want to give false impressions, which is to say that I didn't my clips, I do believe my clips will soon to be back. So
Ah,
yes.
but
Okay.
your channel?
Yes, I think my channel will be back soon. Yes.
Okay. Well, we can
Yes.
say a prayer for that. Lord, please help Jonathan's YouTube channel come back.
Yeah. If it be your will. Yeah. Thanks be to God. I always say thanks after my prayers as if it's like they're already it's like you have to believe that it will be completed. So it's like thank you in advance. I don't know. What do you think about that? I guess
You're only tricking yourself.
because if you say if it be your will and then you say thank you, then I guess you're thanking God's will regardless of what it
Well,
is. Was
yeah, yeah, that's the point I like about it. But
mm,
if you're using that as some sort of like, which I don't think you are doing, but like, if just that's why I wouldn't blanket statement say that like, ah, yes, that's a good practice. But like, when you feel, I should say, I was going to say if, but when you feel that you may be doing that because you're trying to trick God into God thinking that you have more faith than you actually do, like then it's not going to work, you know.
yeah, maybe well or tricking, not necessarily tricking, but
But that's why I said you're
calling
only tricking yourself, which
yeah
is placebo effect, which is
calling a deeper
very effective.
calling a deeper faith, like trying to prompt a deeper faith almost. Um,
Yeah, well, it's the somebody says to Jesus one time, Jesus is like, um, or this guy comes up to Jesus, and I might be misremembering, but the guy comes up to Jesus, and he's like, Lord,
It's sort of bad. I'd give an answer, which was a very good answer. I always talk about, I like to give long the weave. I like to give
Yeah,
the,
you like to weave things
yeah.
in.
Lord, my kids are sick at my house. Um, can you heal them or whatever? Like, can you come to our house and heal them? And Jesus is basically like, um, why do you think I need to come to your house? And the guy's like, God, I believe, help my unbelief. And so that phrase, and I think I'm getting the story wrong on the details, but like my dad always said facetiously, don't ruin a good story with the truth. But the point still stands, which is that phrase, I believe, help my unbelief, is been hugely helpful for me as a Christian. Um, but yeah, it also brings to mind this idea that Kierkegaard had that like prayer is not for the, it's not to change God, even though there are some weird passages where it does seem like God might change or whatever, but that's not what the purpose of prayer is. The purpose of prayer is almost like 99.9% of the time is to change the person who's praying, right? And it's so that has a lot of metaphysical implications to me, which we don't have to get into, but I think in general, I think it's a good practice. I think saying thank you. Um, but yeah, it's I wouldn't call it like a
kind
I
of
don't know.
depends
It's
on
one of,
the kind of depends on the spirit in which you say it, of course. How you
yeah,
say
yeah. Well, and it depends on the person too. Like I've always been more of a fan of like personal prayers and kind of like, whatever you say to God is between you and God kind of a thing.
Mhm.
And so I wouldn't want to tell someone to be like, if someone asked me how to pray, I'd just be like, I mean, look at the Lord's Prayer, and that's a pretty good. You could just say that for the rest of your life, and then you wouldn't really even you'd never, you'd have enough to go off of.
It's true.
the kind of ejaculatory prayers. I don't know. I mean, I've just heard some people say some people I do like respected and loved with all and thought that they were like
Oh, I just lost
I've heard them say some crazy prayers.
you're breaking up a bit
Can you
here.
hear me? I can see you still.
You're back now, yes. There you
Oh,
go. Oh, I,
I've just heard some crazy ass shit said in prayer.
yeah, yeah, you're back now. Yeah, crazy shit.
What's
Yeah, I agree.
going on?
Um, yeah,
So yeah, I think like, you know, there is a sense like but this is something I think Christians in general, but like a lot of religious people and just like a lot of people just kind of get wrong all the time, which is what worked for me is right and normative and should be the rule for all the rest of humanity.
I actually think that that might be like the key to universalism in a sense, insofar as what's right for somebody else might look entirely incorrect to someone from a different perspective, but for them, that is like a truly divine, like shift in the right direction or something. And it's all about, whoa, I lost you. Oh no, oh no. It's about relativism. Everything is relative. I may appear evil to you, however, compared to yesterday me, things might be great. Or something like that. Obviously, it's a very consequential topic, so and easy to oversimplify, so not attempting to do that, of course. Let's see if we can get Sir Mosif back in back in the back in the studio. I was thinking about putting not sure if any of y'all watched Donald Trump on Joe Rogan. I don't know if I'll post this either, but I'm gonna keep talking. Um think about the weave. We're on a big weave, Mr. McMosif and I. We're on a big weave at the moment.
When you do the weaves, and you have to be very smart to do weaves. When you do the weave,
You gotta let the man weave, And sometimes the weaves will come back.
look at this, just in this one thing. We're talking about little pieces all
Uh-huh.
over here, but it
Gotta get
always
back
ends
to
up.
home.
No, it comes back home.
Yeah.
For the right people. For the wrong people, it doesn't come back home, and they end up in the wilderness, right?
You just gotta have faith in the weave. Gotta stay true to the weave. The warp and the weave. Right now we're on a weave about universalism, which came out of a weave about prayer, which came out of a weave about my channel, which came out of a weave about clips about the gods. Hello.
My phone died.
Or that. No worries. I was just talking about, did you see the Donald Trump on Joe Rogan?
Yeah.
The Donald Trump, I meant to say the Donald Trump interview.
The Donald on the Rogan.
Yes, you did? I was thinking about the weave. I thought that part was kind of funny when he was talking about the weave. He's like,
Dude, I know
he's like-
exactly what he's talking about
he's
with
like,
the
you
weave.
gotta let me weave. They don't let me weave. and
Like spoken as, I've never related to Donald Trump more than just like
Yeah.
you
I
gotta
was
let me
just thinking
weave.
about that because we were on a bit of a weave. We were talking about prayer because the
Is
clip
Donald the ADHD emperor?
dude, I think he might just have no
Might just have
thread keeping
dementia.
ability whatsoever. I think all of his thread keeping might just be like a ruse imposed from outside. Like we think he has a coherent identity, but you stick him with Joe Rogan, and you're like, wow, he's just a
Yeah.
loose cannon.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The weave was not. I
Yeah.
mean, like,
Anyway, it came to mind because we were talking about the gods of modernity always watching. How it can I appreciate the weave with regard to
Wait. Did you say the gods of modernity are always
yes,
watching?
yes, because
Mm.
I appreciate the weave with regard to this idea of remembering that God is watching, that remembering God is with you, and but it's almost like nowadays the smartphones are the new gods, and people are talking about the AI gods, and it's like this idea that the machine is always watching, and that the machine is always with you, and that everything you do will be remembered by the machine, and it's like
Oh wow.
it's a and the machine does not love you like God does, you know, and
In
and
fact, you should be loving the machine,
yeah. I mean, ultimately, yeah.
but you can't love the machine because you're too busy using the machine and being used by the machine.
Well, hopefully I can, and hopefully you can, and hopefully we all can. What does it mean to
Yeah,
love, you know?
that was the royal you.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, so yeah, like, but I don't know, and where did that weave come from? It was that the uh
Well, that was the connection point between um what you were saying at the beginning with like the fact that it's weird, like the asynchronous nature of TLC means
oh yeah,
um
because we were talking about the fact that I was recording this, and I'm gonna we're trying to we're trying to talk as if
yeah.
we're not being watched,
Don't
because that's
remember
what I
that
was
would be
saying, that
recorded.
even if it's even if it's just for us, it's I'm still, it's still in my, like you said, sometimes it's nice, but I was gonna say sometimes I would rather just we forget about certain things that we've said to each other, you know?
Yeah. Well, I've made that choice for long periods of time internally. Um and that's actually a very important thing to me to not um every time I get an insight, not to write it down or to share it immediately or to verbalize it immediately.
Mhm.
Um but to in some way hide it in my heart. And what that sometimes means is just like to completely forget about it. Um and that I'm saying this not as like a I don't know. I feel myself wanting to again like make that some sort of like prescriptive thing or that like I don't think that that's necessary for other people, but it seems like to be a kind of a like a unique agreement between me and God specifically.
Right.
um
Yeah, I definitely resonate that, especially with regard to like fresh insights. It's like, or new developments. Like if you, like, for example, if I think my channel is going to be restored in the next few days, to not lean into that too much, to get too excited about it and start talking about it too much, because then it might not happen. Or, like something like that. Like it's kind of a similar idea. It's
I
like,
actually think that that second guessing is not cool.
well, I just mean like in terms of you don't.
Hypothetically, I understand, but there is something like okay, yeah, sorry. I probably came across as a little too aggro than I meant
No,
it to
I
be.
mean, no, we're good.
It's more just like I don't think you did anything wrong. I'm trying to think about this with you, which is the sense of like, do we actually the moment when that kind of like, oh yeah, I shouldn't get my hopes up. Like
Yeah,
I'm increasingly wondering if that like I shouldn't get my hopes up feeling is like a maybe it's something that's like necessary, but it's like
I
it
think
really shouldn't.
it's more so that you don't want to test God, like if like more than you have to. It's like if I know that if I know that God will save me in the end, that doesn't mean that I should increase the the like that I should I'm blowing it up to the huge proportion, and that probably doesn't help. But it's like if I know that uh if I know that um the sun will rise in the morning, I shouldn't be like I shouldn't be like
Well, do you know
I
the sun
shouldn't
is going
like
to rise in the morning?
I should still be grateful for that, and I shouldn't like take it for granted, you know?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah.
exactly. The gratitude and not taking it for granted, I think, are the important part.
Yeah.
The thing that goes like I don't know. I don't know if I've ever noticed this before or is this clearly, but it seems like almost like a completely different voice. The voice that's saying, I still want to be grateful and like not my will but thine be done. That seems like a completely different voice to me right now than um I shouldn't presume, or it's very possible that it doesn't happen. Or even that, like, even when you said like I know the sun's going to rise tomorrow, so I shouldn't. And like,
Well, it's also well, just keeping it in terms of like you said, like if you get an insight, like it might take time to like that's what I more so mean to say is that like
ah,
sometimes there's new like something is on the horizon, like a looming
yeah, so
realization, but you only have just the beginning of it, and I don't want to like get ahead of myself like in talking about it,
ah, yeah, so very few of my insights are ever about the future.
Yeah.
um all of my supposed insights have been specifically about my personal relationship with God, basically. Um, and maybe I'm enough of a narcissist, but that's all God knew. Like, McMo doesn't need to know about the end of the world. All McMo needs to know about is himself.
Or
you
even
know,
just or even just that it maybe it seems like God will fulfill one of your wishes and
Hmm.
that and then you say,
I know which one he'll
God's gonna
fulfill.
fulfill my wishes. Woohoo! And like
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say too much, but I know which one he's going to fulfill.
Mm.
Um, I don't know why I'm feeling hesitant to tell you which one it is, but it's not one like you know have $1 million or
Mhm.
um, anything like that.
Yeah.
Um, Now I'm thinking about this being recorded, um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's so yeah, like, but I mean, I do know which one it is, but it's like an Orthodox. It's, you know what? That's it. That's it. Yeah, it's just like a very kind of like mamby pamby Christianese answer that's very unsatisfying to people unless God tells it to you, which is that
Well, you don't have to tell me. I mean, I'm not necessarily even curious. Like it's more so it's just
well,
like
yeah. Okay, then perfect. I'll keep it a secret. But yeah, like I just wanted to point out the fact that like when I was talking about that, I wasn't even like I definitely wasn't thinking about what I now see you thinking of like an insight like in the way that like maybe Galahad would have. It's just that's just something that's maybe a completely different conversation, but it's very interesting to me that like the flavor, we'll say, of my mystical experiences. Um, well, for one, they've never been visual. I mean, there's been like one or two that were visual, but it wasn't. Um,
imaginative, like in an imagistic way.
it was, but it wasn't as like interesting. Like it wasn't geometrical, for instance.
They're like yeah, I see what you mean. Like
It didn't look like
the
the
word that
DMT
comes to mind is
paintings.
paternal in the sense that it's like a father like something like a
Yeah, like a top-down structure. Yeah,
yeah, like a yeah, something like that, like a pattern that's like a although I think that some of that like in some of that like in my case, I think that the kind of insight that I rave about, like Madman, um, was largely because it was like a personal, like something that would help me.
right.
But it's that also at the same time I saw that like this is something that everybody is like everybody's in the same boat that like everybody could make this kind of
Dude,
switch, you know?
that
And I think a
I
lot
that,
of the ones that you talk about, they
bro, I
maybe
feel that so hard.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and that's part of why I think the whole secret thing happened where
Mhm.
God was basically like, here's the secret. You're not allowed to tell anybody. And when you try, you won't be able to. So good luck. Like that kind
Mhm.
of
I really
Yeah.
resonate with that, man, because it's like as soon as the closer I get to, like uh resummoning the experiential qualia to which I'm trying to refer, uh immediately it becomes impossible because like ultimately what I'm most speaking about is that which takes place in the silence. But it's also that's not true because it's also true that I think the same dynamics apply to our voice. Like I think just like how Steiner said that like the larynx performs eurythmy. So it's like we're always doing eurythmy. And 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 so I do think that like speech is like the quintessence of it, but it's the fact that uh the nonverbal stuff is always going on while we're doing the verbal stuff as well. And like there's this disconnect between the two, and there's like these two different languages, but then they can become one language. And it's like and that's
Sure.
when
Well, it's the thing is that they're not disconnected,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like
Yeah, ultimately.
the same nervous system that's causing my larynx to move is the one causing my hand to do the weird things,
Yeah.
right?
Isn't that what crazy to think about?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like because it's kind of unconscious, but we also say like I want to say cat. It's like I didn't think about like the tiny little intricate
Yeah.
cat.
Yeah.
It's but there's a way where we also are deeply in we have agency in this
Yeah.
respect, you
Yeah.
know? Um
Well, and
anyway.
then it levels up too, right? Because there's like there's the thing of like I'm not thinking about the way my larynx is moving. And then there's the thing of like I'm not thinking about the words that I'm saying. And then there's the thing of I'm not thinking about the sentences. And then there's the thing of I'm not thinking about the idea that I'm trying to put forth. That
Mhm.
or like the things I'm thinking and the things I'm saying are not connected in any way, which is a thing that can happen. And I'm doing it right now because I'm picturing a strawberry ice cream in my head, wondering about what my dog's
Mhm.
barking at while I'm
Mhm.
continuing to
Yeah.
spout this
How do
sentence,
we
right?
how do we get to this?
That's your kind of
Your
person.
weave is getting wide. We're
No,
getting
no,
wide with
my
this
way,
weave.
but isn't
I
it
want to
much
bring it
better?
back to tariffs.
But
And then there's another thing of like when you freestyle rap, um,
Improv.
it's improvisational. Yeah. And so it's yeah, I think for whatever reason, Steiner, I hear like whenever I watched your video back in the good old days, before you were banned from YouTube
Not bad for me
for
too.
reasons unknown to me, um, which one day I hope to know.
That's what
President of
I
the
think
Doomies
that was
doesn't even know what's going
that's what
on,
we are thinking. I think this is quite the weave we're on at the moment. Yeah.
bro. I I'm better at the weave than Trump. You know why? Because I trust God. I
I
don't
agree with
trust my
that.
ability to get back on track.
I think it might have just been an excuse for his like
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
Well,
please.
see, the thing is, like, sometimes if I'm pressed, I can do the thread repair. Usually for other people more than I can do it for myself.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know if Trump could have like remembered the question that was asked of him, like he gives
No,
some
there's no way. He
anyway,
could do the weave because he's just talking about things he's thinking about.
yeah.
It's not like,
Yeah. I don't know. It's funny to think that like he might actually be like a master like
well, that's what the Dilbert guy, Scott
yeah,
Adams, said.
yeah,
Scott Adams was like, this Trump guy is a genius,
like a rich
which is the
hey,
funniest take. Say what you want about the guy, but just like thinking that he is like this genius level, like that really, I don't know, it makes me chuckle just to think about like Trump's internal life being like, they don't like me. They think I'm just
there was
Donald
really so
working the
much of that.
McDonald's.
Like there was so much of that. It's crazy. Like he just like it's like he was talking about polls and stuff. Like you could see when the topic of polls came up, he was just like
I'm leading in the
he's like
polls.
he kind of ugh. It's like I don't know. Anyway,
Cares a
um
lot about the polls,
yeah, the so
just like I care about hearing the story of what
yeah,
happened to Jonathan Demir YouTube
yeah.
channel.
I interrupted, yeah, and I forgot we were saying um
Steiner, picturing a strawberry ice cream, the
Oh yeah,
arrhythmia
the
of the
Steiner
vocal
clips.
cords.
You were
Yeah,
talking
and
about the
Steiner.
Steiner clips.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
when I watched your videos on Steiner and tried to learn a little bit about, like, all of my arrhythmia knowledge is just from your videos. But even still, I was actually talking to Sherry about this. Um, Actually, this isn't what we were talking about, but she brought up your work with Steiner and arrhythmia, and it just made me realize, like, yeah, I don't think I still don't quite get it, and for whatever reason, it just hasn't pierced the
Mhm.
thick skull. Except that I think I get it with like the movement, right? Like I think I understand it, but it's not like, it doesn't excite me like it excites you. And so I feel like I'm still kind of missing a lot of those connection points to, like, I mean, even the larynx one that we just talked about, that's like big for me. And I'm like that, I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, yeah, I'm starting to see
Yeah.
what arrhythmia is.
When studying eurythmy, it is essential to understand the inner nature of all that is bound up with speech, and consequently with visible speech also.
Yeah, and it's kind of like you can think about like or well, we don't have to get all into it, but yeah,
We
in
can.
yeah. The I'm just thinking how we got to this topic because I wanted to, in terms of things being recorded, and then the gods of modernity. That's what I was gonna say. But then how did we get from there
Always
further?
watching. We could get stuck in a recursion loop where
Yeah,
we just keep going back to
yeah.
picturing a strawberry ice cream.
Also, my dad just called me down for dinner.
This always happens.
It's true. It really does always happen every time we fucking talk.
Blame your parents. They don't get us. They don't
You
get
know,
it. We're really
God damn it, mom. It actually really pissed me off yesterday. I started talking with Ups and my dad. Anyway, though,
the larynx, like freestyle rapping, but that was after you had said the arrhythmia larynx thing. Um,
it's a larynx, by the way. Larynx.
Larynx,
Larynx.
larynx, larynx, dude.
Anyway.
Larynx.
The
Redex.
Lorax.
It's the Lorax.
Yeah.
Larynx.
Maybe I'll here's what I think we should do. I think we should stop and then look at the recording to mend the weave and then continue with what the plan was, which was to update you. But the problem is that we got we were talking about the dynamics of recording and and
Yeah,
um whereas I was hoping to update you.
I've enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed
Regardless,
it too. I thought this was very
it's
neat.
good to see you,
And I
brother.
think
It's
I think
good to
it'll actually
hang.
be I mean what I think once we mend the weave it'll be extra beautiful. That's what I think because I think
Maybe I think I can mend the weave though. I think.
yeah,
What
maybe.
were you talking about that made me think about that?
Yeah.
Thinking of or what did
It's
I
when
say that made you say the arrhythmia thing?
I think it was something about the insights that we receive and the secret. I
The
think that's what it
secrets.
was. Yeah,
Yeah.
something there. I'm gonna leave it there, and then I'll be right back. I'll probably be like, "Are you?" I know you said you don't want to go too long, so maybe 15 minutes, and then we'll go for like another half hour or something.
Sure. Sure.
Cool,
Yeah,
cool.
I'm good for a little while.
But do we
Oh
really?
shit!
Do we really?
Recording in progress.
Do we really? We really spent the whole time talking about that. That's funny. Like I was just looking. I just sat down like 30 seconds before you hopped in. I was looking at our weave, trying to retrace the weave. Um,
God was basically like, here's the secret.
yeah, we are talking about secret, and I think we got there because we were talking about how some things are
Just
better left not remembered or like yeah, that's what it was.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the chair. I don't need the microphone. I'm using my AirPods. I just realized that halfway through what you were saying.
Yeah. Here we be. Yeah, and then I think I compared that because I compared that to my uh we were comparing our various types of insights,
Mm.
which and I suggested that perhaps they are not so different. And also I was gonna say that like with and then we got somehow to this whole separation between the speaking and the different layers. The same dynamics apply to our voice. Like qualia to which I'm trying to refer.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Oh yeah, it was the fact that um when you try and talk about it, it's not going to be understood
Mm.
because. But then I said, actually speaking is also eurythmy, so like it's kind of weird in that respect. But I think nonetheless there is still this separation between the words we're saying and like the tone in which we say them sometimes, where somebody's eurythmy in their voice will be saying something totally different than what the meaning of the propositional words are saying.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes it's more important that we pay attention to the other language that's being said, and like
Well,
um,
there's two schools of thought on that, right?
sure.
Because well, there's a lot of schools of thought on it, but I guess what came to mind was actually that much like singing, using the right melody when
Yeah.
speaking.
Yeah, that's what I was talking
Um,
about with ups, like basically the whole time yesterday. Yeah.
yeah, but it's like it can be used for manipulation,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like and I can even but I can do it in both ways. Like I could probably speak eloquently and slightly above my um actual level of intelligence or something,
Mhm.
beyond my means, and in order to signal something to you. Like
Yeah.
that's what's weird to me, I guess, is that it's not like a but yeah, that there's things that I can do consciously to affect it and to actually
Yeah.
I can use it for ill, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
But
that's
then
the way that connects to the stuff that I've said in the past is insofar as it can be conceived of as a technology, which is like it's like clothing, but like the technology, and it's also like medicine, such that it's
mm,
magic words that can heal and stuff, but medicine is like this medicine and technology, this Luciferic double-edged sword where it can be both evil or it can be like there's a bad, it has to be used correctly type of thing.
well, yeah, because here's the other thing is, and this is more of like a Freudian take, which is the idea that like when you I was about to say like make a verbal typo. When you say what you don't mean to say, that's actually what you meant to say. That's the kind of like Freudian that's a Freudian slip, right? The Freudian slip is I say like I call my wife mom or something,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, no, an example would be like what I was saying with my dad. Wow. Like my dad annoyed me right before our talk, my talk at the ups yesterday. And I feel like half the time, even though I was talking about eurythmy and such, I was saying, my dad's so fucking annoying.
I love the idea of like like arrhythmia. I think of like a ballet artist, just kind of like beautifully dancing. And
Yeah.
then it's just like you're like beautifully dancing like a ballet artist, and then you're just like, except for you, Dad.
Real, like, well, that's the thing is that like the best example of this, I think, is the ideologues who are like the wokeists. Like
Ah,
they'll say something, but the tone and the
that's the
file,
tone.
it's like what they're actually saying is, I fucking hate God and I hate you and everything can burn in hell. And it's like, and that's the thing is that we don't perceive that layer of reality. So
Who
it's
we?
just, yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, in general, the grand we, it's like we people it just and they get even cops and stuff, cops will get up in an argument with one of these ideologues and they'll just be totally like because the spiritual the music of their speech just totally uh
Well,
stuns
that's the
them.
thing, right? Like
Yeah.
that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
It's like Hey Ya, the song Hey Ya, right? Like
Just because it's catchy or
yeah, well, here's the thing. I mean, the song Hey Ya by Outkast. My baby don't mess around because she loves the song and this I know for sure. And so the lyrics are about insecurity, but does she really want to can't stand to see me walk out the door?
Mhm.
Um, he's insecure about. They say nothing is forever, then what makes love the exception? So he's feeling very insecure about his relationship, but the song is And then he even says it in the bridge, that y'all don't want to hear me, y'all just want to dance.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
there's this way in which a cop and a protester, they don't want to hear each other. They just want to dance. It's also interesting
That's
that
true.
we say, "Do you want to dance?" And
That's
it's
an
like a fight
interesting
thing,
angle. Yeah.
because what's speaking to each other is the arrhythmia, right? Like
Mhm.
they're doing the motions of you go to hell. No, you go to hell.
Mhm. But the
And
one that I was really thinking of is when the cop is just totally bewildered and like they have no, because like they have no, they're not seeing like the spiritual dimension of what's going on or something. Like the
mm,
way that I almost conceive it is like there is a way where um the musicality aspect of speech and the propositional aspect of speech, it kind of corresponds with left and right brain. So there's a way where when they're working together, um there's no like difference between like like the music of it is in accordance with what we're actually experiencing
yeah.
and trying to communicate. And and
Well, what's also happening when they're working together is they're preaching.
yeah, like yeah, like
That's like actual preaching.
yeah, I think so too. Like I think that's when like evangelism is like really possible, like ultimately, and also like exorcism, but even just like basic human understanding, like um and
You know what that makes me think of?
please.
How universal it is when a dog or a pet is doing something they shouldn't do, and how pretty much like every culture, every human, there's probably variances. I'm probably just ignorant, but like how basically through all cultures and all humans, and as far as we know, all time, when an animal does something you don't want it to do, but it's like a pet, you go
Yeah.
like, like like there's like this weird noise that people will make when something that they love is doing something they don't
Yeah,
want it
no,
to
that's
do.
a great point, I think. Yeah, like that's exactly what I'm yeah. It's funny also.
And the liberals have taken that and turned it into speech. Like,
Dude, I literally saw a video yesterday. I saw a video yesterday where this is just one of those woke people like screaming. It's but
oh, at the baby, was that the one at the baby?
no, just a lady like she was standing there, like she was talking to someone, and she just like yelling at the camera, and then she would stop and like just like waiting for a response. Like she's seen. It's like it's so weird, dude. But yeah, I mean, um, yeah, I lost the train of thought there. Um, yes,
Well,
uh,
it's the arrhythmia of like possession almost,
yeah,
right? Like there's something that's like,
yeah. That's how I think about it. Yeah,
yeah,
I that's like that's really what. Yeah, that's like that's the way I most commonly experience the things that I'm talking about, which is that like I walk into a room and somebody's like giving off this musical vibe that I'm just like I cannot fall into this vibe right now.
ah,
Like,
ah,
or it's like I need to bring a new vibe to this space or something, like something like that, So
yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe I don't. I mean, we started talking or I wanted to talk about work apparently when we first started talking, but that's reminding me of my job. Like that's kind of a salesman's. That's like my least favorite part about being a salesman is sometimes you're at a social event with someone and they basically just show themselves to be not my cup of tea,
mm,
and I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm not sure I like you very much after hearing that
mm,
or seeing that or whatever.
mm,
Um, and it's interesting because there's like, I lack all of the kind of social skills to handle that situation in a way that is smooth and it's not a whatever. We can get through any social situation. We're here to make money, kind of a thing. I'm in the ocean. I'm going to play the shark game.
mhm.
But there is a weird sense in which I'm like, I pray for your soul, brother. Like that's like a weird. Like I'm like, that's not okay. Like Lord, you got me in a weird. I mean,
Dude.
what's crazy is
the feeling I get when I've been in like the stickiest of like back alley situations, I have the same feeling when I'm in like extremely expensive steakhouse and I see the like demon of mammon like across the table from me.
Yeah, because it's like
And
it's very, the resonance, like the mirror neurons is the way that I've been thinking about it recently, is how like, like people, a lot of this mirroring and like these subtle patterns, they transfer like precognitively, like it's conscious, like so it's hard to be on guard. And that's kind of what we were saying before I lost my train of thought, which is that like with the cops and stuff, like we need the spiritual awareness of these spiritual phenomena because and and that's also what's up with like the left and right brain thing, such that like we need to reconnect these realities also in our perception of each other, such that when we see somebody, we can see, the rhythmic aspect of what's going on, and we can see, or we can hear the propositions, you know, like we can track what their mind is, what their ego is thinking, and also what their body is thinking. Because that's really, eurythmy is really the language of the body to a large extent. It's like, or at least how I think about it is like it's the integration. I don't want to keep talking about like eurythmy as such, but like it's kind of like, uh, let's say the language of the right brain is the language of the body or something. It's the feminine musical aspect, and to be able to see those and to distinguish them and to almost kind of like try and help bring them back together, such that if I see somebody who's like really disconnected from their body, like they're exuding this vibe while their mind is off spinning in some narrative, then like how can I help be like a, you know,
Yeah.
active
Yeah, I think I
towards,
see what you're saying.
yeah, to
I
be able
wonder,
to,
oh wait, can you hear me?
yeah.
Oh, okay. I wonder if the it's helpful to if it would be helpful to see it slightly differently, which is instead of it being like a left brain, right brain thing, it being like a conscious, unconscious thing.
Yeah.
Because I think that like when we say that it's like a left brain, right brain thing, I think most people, I don't know, I shouldn't speak for most people. When I think about left brain, right brain, whatever that, whatever science is behind that, and I'm kind of not from a materialistic science point of view. I'm not sure how I don't awesome it is. I don't know. I've grown a little bit weary of people overusing the left brain, right brain thing.
I
But
I can respect that, although I would interject that and say that like there has been a bunch of stuff that says like the poetic aspect of language is more handled by the right brain, and like the
well,
propositional aspect is more left brain.
as a as a tool for philosophical distinctions, I think it's very helpful.
Mhm.
And so like in that respect, I'm fine with it. But there is a the reason I think that putting it in the unconscious might be helpful is because I think there's a weird sense in which like that the situation is cosmically set up for you to do your best and for that to be good enough most of the time. But if you don't do your best, then it doesn't work. And so for me, what that means is like it's kind of unpaired from your consciousness in some real sense, but it's also completely paired with it in the sense that like
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know why that's coming up
No,
for me. I don't think I did a good job of explaining it.
that totally fits with my way of thinking about it. Like that's the way I would agree with that 100% because like like I think about, well, at least the way that the materialists spoke, not to call Ian McGilchrist necessarily materialist, but like those people would, like a lot of people that think about things that way would equate the right brain with the unconscious and therefore the spiritual world. Like they say the unconscious is the spiritual, like like the
Yeah.
gods are actually just stuff in your right brain. And
Yeah, I don't think that's the way it is at all.
yeah, no, I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm just saying like I think it's in keeping like in the sense that like the unconscious is also like the body is unconscious largely, you know, like
Yeah.
and the feminine is unconscious and like largely
Mm.
and and
Well, at least to us males it is.
yeah, yeah. And well, yeah, I mean that's really I think also very a good point because like women experience uh I think they're more clued into these like most women are aware that like you know the right you know flick of the eyes or like you know anything it's so hard to describe but like you know like it's very they have a lot of power with their language, you know?
Countenance.
Yeah, and um but
Well, one thing that
hmm,
happens, or one thing that happened for me when I got married was like the power of my wife grew exponentially, and the power of every other female in my entire life basically inverted. I was like, I was basically just like, I don't care about any of y'all. Like, like it's you
yeah,
do not scare me one bit. I've got
it's
like a real scary. I mean, it's not that my wife scares me. It's more just like I guess it was that like women as women had very little to. I didn't feel like they had a one up over me anymore because I didn't like quote unquote need them or like I don't know. It's kind of hard to talk about this without sounding like a chauvinist, I guess. But
I don't I think it's you know I don't know I think that sounds like a good thing it's like a I don't know it's like as soon everyone else becomes Lilith suddenly it's like
well,
a
it's not even that. It was more like I think before I was married, I had this like view of women that was like. I mean, I don't want to sell myself too short, but I was like drastically afraid of women, especially if I found them attractive, just because I didn't trust myself to handle that situation well for
Mhm.
most of my life. And there are reasons for that, both internal and external, like reasons people told things that to me that made me feel that way, but also things I told myself that made me feel that way. But then there's also a real sense in which I was kind of, I think I really envied in a lot of ways the kind of cultural power that a strong, smart, attractive female had in social settings.
Mhm.
And so I felt a lot of times that I would be in competition. And this is just, you know, this is just real dirt on me. But like and I still feel this in some regard, like a real sense of competition with like the most attractive person in the room, you
Mhm.
know, because of being a attention hungry little whore myself, you know, it's like how dare they get attention for doing nothing, just being incredibly attractive and witty and sexy. You know, they should have to grovel and embarrass themselves like me to get attention. But yeah, so but as soon as like, and I'll say it was even before I got married, but as soon as I believed, well, I had to believe two things, and it's kind of hard to explain, and as if they were things that I got immediately, but they were both things that kind of came at the same time. Which was one I couldn't like. I actually believed that my wife was sexually attracted to me and liked me and all of that. Like not even my wife at the time, but my girlfriend. I just believed that she really liked me. You know, like that was like a huge hurdle for me was just to actually think that she wasn't just with me for some sort of like um Nietzschean power play or even like a rebound or there was a whole lot of reasons that my brain had cooked up that my wife was my girlfriend at the time was with me. And so the first hurdle was just believing that she actually liked me. But then at the same time, it was also the realization and the real understanding that like she would never actually fulfill the like hole that I wanted like my dream girl wife to fill. That it wasn't like that that's just not what what reality was like or something. Um but it was a very liberating situation when those two things sunk in, because it was, and they sunk in at once, but it was just like I was able to see attractive women as people for the first time, you know, like just in summary, because it was just like, oh yeah, like you don't scare me, you can't like embarrass me,
Right.
like yeah, and so I don't know that there's a weird sense in which like yeah, being married, being in a I don't know, not even I was going to say being in a happy marriage, but like I am in a happy marriage, but it's not like it's all happy all the time, but just like loving your wife, marrying the right person, all of those types of things, being grateful for the relationship you're in, maybe that would be even a better way to say it, is like such a defense against the feminine wilds. But I don't remember why I was talking about that.
We were talking about it because talking about the the feminine unconscious
Yes, yes.
and how
Oh, and sorry, there was one other thing I wanted to
sure,
say with
sure.
that, the feminine unconscious. Thank you for helping me with thread
Yeah,
repair, by the way. And I still do want to hear why you think your channel was nuked. um, so this is one thing that Sherry said recently, and maybe this will be a good enough reason for us not to release this, because I don't think this is gossip, but I haven't talked to Sherry about this yet, and I want to, but I just haven't hasn't come up yet. But um, Sherry said something recently, which was, and I think she's mentioned this a few times actually now, but that she thinks that we should be striving to follow Mary and not follow Christ. That her kind of inclination is that following Christ is almost like a hubristic, um, like why would you think that you could follow Christ? And that what we can do is we can be like Mary, who is basically just, shouldn't say just, the mother of God, who is, says basically, let it be unto your servant. Um, but when she said that, and the way in which she kind of said it emphatically, I was like, oh man, I wonder if that is basically like the feminine version of what I understand the male archetype to be, which is Christ, right? Like the self-sacrificial love, that like the imitation of Christ is what is most salient to me, I guess.
Hmm.
And it was, and so this is why it was a dangerous thing for Sherry to say what she said. And maybe she would not agree with the way I put it, or would put it differently.
Mhm.
But it was very interesting, because it was another one of those things where like, similar to you saying like you like to say thank you at the end of prayers instead of like amen or um in Jesus name or whatever, um where I'm like, it makes
Well,
sense to me
that's not what I
that
always say.
like
Just to be clear, that's not what I always
yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah, sorry to or whatever. I just
So
mean to be like, I just mean to point to that as like, I think I have a similar feel about that, where it's like it just makes sense to me that your prayer life would have certain peculiarities that
yeah,
maybe I, for reasons of, for the reasons of me being different than you and seeing things differently than you, would
yeah.
feel less or more comfortable doing.
Oh yeah,
And then
100%.
it's like and then it's like the same thing with Sherry of like,
Yeah,
oh shoot, like maybe it's a feminine masculine thing, but maybe it's also just like an individual thing of like Sherry, and maybe if Sherry made a mistake, which woe be unto me for saying that Sherry made a mistake, but if she did make a mistake, it would probably be something like she's mistaking God's direct and personal message to her as a message for all the people,
Hmm.
which is a very like tricky question for me, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, aside from whether whatever Sherry might or not think, and I don't think she would be like I don't think I think she would appreciate you mentioning
Oh
her
yeah.
like or just kind of bringing up this topic, I suppose. I think aside from whatever she thinks, I definitely think there's something to be said for that idea that like maybe women are more so called to follow Mary, or that we are all called to follow Mary as well in some respect. I can definitely at least say that, to some extent that's true. Like
Well, here's the weird thing. Sorry, I keep interrupting. Apparently I have a lot to say to you, Jonathan. I'm so sorry for not
it's
being a
been a
good
while. We
listener
haven't
tonight.
talked,
I know,
I have
I
a lot
know.
to say
Missed
too.
you, man.
I have a lot to say too,
I know. You're just more polite than me.
perhaps. I don't know. Um, but yeah, like this idea that I don't know, the way that I think about it is that I think about it, let's say in the Kabbalistic tree of life,
Wow.
where you have the three at the top, which would be God. It's all God. It's all God, but it's like the emanations of God, the 10
Three's
emanations.
at the top of the Kabbalah.
You know, like the tree that looks like it's the 10 Sephirah.
I
So
mean, yeah, the one that looks like a dreidel, basically,
yeah.
and
So
it also looks like a Braxis. See, this is a deficiency for me. I do not vibe with the charts, man. The charts make no sense to me. I'm just like a
it's like an icon, you gotta like
yeah, I'm Protestant. I don't like icons.
it's like a
It's an
you know,
image. It's a
it's just like
graven
how when
image,
you look
dude.
at a crucifix, it's like a symbol of a lot more than just some guy who lived 1,000 years ago. It's like there's a lot more
No,
going
I
on.
know.
Yeah.
I know. But I think there is like a geometric sense of it that like I just don't it's harder for me to
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I that's just like if I studied it, I could probably understand it, but I've tried. I've like watched videos trying to explain it or whatever,
Hmm.
and it just don't sink in. It's a deficiency. I
Well,
don't feel
I mean,
proud of this.
particularly that stuff gets pretty far, like, all that geometry. Like, I don't
I'm
know.
chart blind, dude. I'm chart blind.
I don't know. I, I don't know. I don't think, I don't know. I don't, I think
Sorry, I interrupted.
you might be
I just
selling
thought it was
yourself short. I don't
I
know.
just thought it was interesting that three. I didn't know that like three was the top number
Yeah,
of the
let me show you a picture here. No, I think I might be,
teach me,
tree of
Sensei
life.
Jonathan.
Welcome to my classroom. Here we are today. We will be, can you see this? Yes. This thing.
I can. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought you were referencing.
Yeah.
I
So if
see
you,
that thing and I just think, ah, yes, mystical Jewish things that I probably know all about, but I don't like thinking graphs. So this will just be something that Jesus explains to me in heaven.
yeah. Well, I think it might be worth familiarizing at least to some degree um here on Heaven on Earth and such. Um I'm looking for one in particular which shows Kabbalistic tree of life. Man. Man. This one. You can see here. Um
Let's say Abba.
yeah, so this but it's typically that it
Oh,
would be
that's your
the
mom and your
the
dad with God on
Father,
top.
the Word, and this is like the wisdom of God. Like I think about this as Sophia, the
Well, hey, but
Logos.
Abba is father. But then it says
That's
Father,
true. I mean, I'm not thinking
God,
about this one. I'm not
Word,
thinking about like
Wisdom,
I don't know about this one in particular or whatever.
the crown, God and his.
I mean,
Huh.
I'm not talking about this one in particular or anything. It's just to show that like let's look at a different one. This um
That one was the first one that made sense, started to make sense to me.
yeah,
All the ones with the planets, I can't make heads or
yeah.
tails of the. This is why I'm also not good with
Think about it
you
like
know,
this is the
the
first
star charts.
this
This is
is
like a
the
star chart.
this is the
Three
divine
D.
oneness. Think about it like this. Divine oneness and it and first it these are like the first two things the first two emanations. It's almost like yin and yang, right? Like this is the whole yin yang together and then it
Yeah.
gets split and then it gets further
Okay.
split.
The
But
heavens and the earth, basically.
kind of
Malkuth is the body. Yesod is a personal unconscious. Gebura, Chesed, Tiferet, Hod, Netcha. That's the Jungian ego. And Chakma, Bina, and Keter, that would be the collective unconscious slash the world of archetypes.
but you can think about it like this is the masculine part of God and this is the feminine part of God. That's like the most simple way to think about it. And and
Okay.
so in terms of I think we're
Huh.
We see this coming up in the doctrine, the post-New Testament doctrine of the Trinity. We Jews have always tended to sort of make fun of the Trinity. Oh, how can there be three that is one? If they've got this three-part God, even if they call it a triune God, a God that is three yet one, really they're pagans. They're not real monotheists like we Jews are or like the Muslims are. Those Christians are really pagan. But I think that what we're seeing from what I've been saying in the past couple days is that, the idea of the Trinity, that there is this one God who manifests itself in three different ways, that's actually an old ancient Near Eastern idea that can function in a polytheistic context, as it did for the Babylonians and the Canaanites, but it can also function in a monotheistic context, as it does, I think, in the J and the E texts and some of the other texts that we were looking at. In fact, to say that 3 is 1, heck, the Kabbalah is going to go further than that. They say 10 is 1. The Zohar, Sefer HaBahir, they say 10 is 1. And actually, when you get to Luriana Kabbalah, and there's the idea that within each of the Sefirot, each of the 10 Sefirot has 10 Sefirot within it, so that we've got 100 different Sefirot, really. We're taking this reasoning much, much farther than the Christians did. So actually, one of the more radical conclusions that I came to, much to my own surprise, when I was writing this book, and this is not at all what I had intended to do, because in various ways that we could discuss if you're interested, I'm actually rather uncomfortable with my own conclusion here, but as a scholar, I gotta call them as I see them. One of the conclusions that I came to my shock, when I finished this book, is that we Jews have no theological objection to the doctrine of the Trinity. No theological right to object to the Trinity. Theologically, I think that the model of the Trinity is an old, ancient Near Eastern idea that shows up in the Tanakh, and that in a different way shows up in Jewish mysticism as well. I'm not saying that I believe in the Trinity or encouraging anyone to believe in the Trinity. If you believe in the Trinity, from a Jewish point of view, you're worse than a heretic.
I think we're all called to be both feminine and masculine, but that ideally it's some sort of not transgenderism, but it's it's like in ultimate nature, we are like God in the sense that we are not, like, I think God is like pre-gender in some sense, but there also is a fatherly, paternal element. It's hard to describe. Like, this is all such tricky stuff, but basically I think Sherry might be right in some sense, but also I don't know what Sherry actually thinks.
Yeah, the thing that solves it for me is and I felt this way before I knew about Kierkegaard, but it's a certain it's a very low church Protestant priesthood of all believers individualism, where who's responsible for, like, who is responsible for your life? You and God. Like, and who is going to stand before God in judgment day? You are. It's not, I mean, sure, I am too. Well, I should say it's not you are, I am. I'm going to stand before judgment. Maybe you won't, maybe you'll get lumped in, and I don't mean you, but like to the person who would kind of want to think about identity primarily, or something like, I don't even think people do this on purpose. But one danger when you start talking, and this is because what I heard you kind of trying to say is like the ideas of there being this like ontological masculine and ontological feminine that even more so than the yin and the yang are kind of like impassable, that it really is like a either or. And because God is kind of like hyper gender or something like that, I don't know what the way that I guess I make sense of that is that it's like, yeah, every single individual is going to be different. There were men that I grew up with who were fathers and successful businessmen who spoke with a lisp and cared a lot about fashion. And I grew up thinking that, like, that's not, there is a sense in masculinity where it's like you have a deep voice and you are, have tons of testosterone and, whatever. And then all this got reinforced or clarified by Nietzsche in a lot of ways. But there's also a real true sense in which, um, people often quote this verse, but the fact that there is no male or female, Jew or Gentile in Christ.
Yeah, that's the
But
thing is that I think maybe that's why also I was hesitating is because there's also a thing where it's like Christ could easily be, you could usually think about it as like Mary, Christ, God, but I also think there's a sense in which Christ is very much in the center, like not,
well, Paul actually talks about this, and he calls it a mystery, right? It's that in some cosmic way, the masculine, we get like, here's the flip that I think makes this a mystical thought rather than a like theological thought. But Paul says that basically, like, this is the mystery of marriage, that Christ is the bridegroom and the church is the bride. So that there's this weird sense in which what makes masculinity masculine is its connection to Jesus Christ. It's not that Jesus was a man or so,
that makes
though he
sense.
was.
That
It
makes
was
sense.
that
And also
man, we get the like, yeah, like the source of manhood is Jesus, and then that like the source of femininity is actually the church.
yeah, that also maps to the way that I tend to think about it in terms of this cosmogram, such that the masculine would be like this whole right side, and you have like the fire element going up into the air element, wands and swords, and the yang. But if you see, the yang also comes over, and it is in the middle here, right here. See, like in this the taijutsu,
Mm-hmm.
such that the masculine, like this is in the center as well. Feminine here, right? And then the feminine womb below, such that in the center it's really androgynous. Like it's like male dominated, but it's both. It's male on top, female on the bottom, and it's both going on. But there's also this separation, you see. So Christ is really on both sides, but like the masculine side of Christ is here, and the feminine
Sure.
side is kind of here, and on the bottom with the womb.
Sure. I mean, this is like, once again, I'm not good with charts. And I'm also like the whole masculine feminine thing I've thought about too much. And this is one of the issues in my life that I've switched back and forth on like a few times, where I've been like super hyper men are men, women are women, and then gone like the whole other way where it's like, yeah, I guess a lot of this is kind of just social construction and like the way I was raised. And, there's some, toxic masculinity is a thing. And then, I've gone to the whole other side where it's like, it's all crazy. Men should be men, blah, 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 blah. I feel like I've done that kind of seesaw enough to where I'm just it takes me a long time to accept something as something involving gender as being something helpful and with clarity. It's helpful to know about somebody, like what they think about gender issues. But as far as like thinking about them well, or like thinking towards somehow solving the problems of gender, which I would just kind of point to the problems of gender being analogous to you trying to figure out where on the cosmogram they go. Like, I just like got the image of like these boxes being like drawn on top of this image, just being like the feminine might be here and then the masculine is over it, but
Well,
then the
no.
feminine is also here,
That's definitely like that was a correct reading as far as I understand it. Maybe I don't know if
Yeah. Well, and I don't mean to say that it was incorrect. I just mean from my perspective, it was like it's still very hard for me to kind of see symbolically why the boxes are where they are. And so it was basically like the joke is that it was just like arbitrary boxes being like, see, this is masculine and this is feminine. And like I'm like,
oh yeah, yeah.
Which one has the Audi? But then what the thought that I want to try to posit towards you and see if there's a connection is a thought that I also just want to get down on the record because I've never thought it before, which is that if the idea of masculine kind of comes from Christ, and that the idea of the feminine comes from the church, um, it just struck me that it was interesting. Two things: the story of Adam and Eve in the garden, where Eve does two things wrong. Most of the time, people just talk about her eating the fruit, but she makes a mistake before she eats the fruit. She says that God would not have us touch the tree. And either Adam told her the wrong thing, or she kind of took the rule and she set herself a further boundary of like, not only am I not going to eat from the tree, I'm not even going to look at the tree. And so that strikes me as something that the church does constantly. That's what the people of Israel did. Like, that's what the Pharisees did. And that's what it seems like the church does constantly. But then the other crazy part is that after she eats, Adam eats. And it's almost like you see the sense in which that's the pattern. But when Christ eats after, when he takes on the wages of sin, which is death, he does it in a way like, it's weird because he's like, I'm going to eat the apple knowing that it's going to kick me out of the garden forever. Right? Like, that's a weird, and it's almost like, I don't know. I guess I've just never thought of the implications in that way of like Christ being the second Adam, where like you see this two-part move of like the church basically misunderstanding the rule and breaking the rule. Like, not only did they misunderstood it as more strict than it was, and then even after that, they still break the rule.
Mm.
And then Christ, Adam, kind of, instead of joining in with us and then blaming us, it's almost like he takes the blame. Not only does he take the blame, but he also not partakes in it, but he takes the responsibility of it. Like, yeah, it's just it's like, it makes me wonder, like, if Adam had actually been like, you know what, God, I messed up big time here. Like, I should have not trusted or whatever, said whatever, and just been like, if Adam could have been just like, you know what, God, don't kill Eve, kill me, and just like let you and Eve figure it out, kind of a thing. It makes you wonder, like, maybe in one sense, maybe we don't have all of the suffering in the world, but then in another sense, it's like, but yeah, then maybe we don't exist. So maybe it had to be the way it had to be, but very, very interesting. I don't know. Does that connect at all to, I just kind of felt pressed to say that. I don't know if it's
Definitely interesting.
Oh, shit.
stuff there, for
There's
sure.
a brown bear, black bear, not brown bear.
Actually,
Can you see these?
damn.
You see that?
Wow.
I gotta figure out if I can switch this. It's a family. How do
Wow.
I switch the video? Oh, there it is.
Wow.
You see that? Did you see the little baby bear?
Yeah. Or I didn't see the baby one. I'm not sure. I might have.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Was I
Wow.
muted?
Do you see bears?
Yeah, we've had these bears. They've been getting in my trash every morning.
Damn.
It's just mama bear. Oh, there it is.
Whoa.
Can you see when I zoom in like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You saw that one, dude?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, he was probably trying to get in my trash. He was just on the other side of my car.
Yeah, that's crazy. It was like right there.
Yeah, and I'm talking loud.
Damn. So yes, I do think what you're saying does connect. It's interesting. I think there's a lot of very nuanced stuff. It's like, you brought up a lot of pretty deep
Yeah,
topics,
did.
so it's kind of hard to like navigate them all. But I mean,
I'll take the blame for that.
but yeah, I mean, in terms of the feminine, ultimately it was connecting back to what we were saying about because we were talking about like how the language of the body. For example, you can think about it this way, like Matthew Peugeot's New Creation is called the language of like death and renewal.
which is the language of the feminine, and he calls it like the language of Eve, right?
Dreams.
Yeah, and like, and so
Also, I've been having crazy dreams. Like I've been
oh, yeah.
dreaming nonstop for the past
Wow,
month and a half.
damn.
I don't
Right.
know what that means.
Have you been writing them down?
No,
Gotta write them down.
I don't want to write them
Like,
down.
like crazy, not crazy, like nightmares or
um, I would say like about 1 in 5 is a good dream.
uh,
Maybe 2 and 5 are.
I haven't had an intense dream in a while. Yeah.
I don't even know if retelling them would be intense. It's more of just like they trigger me. They're like specifically triggering towards like to me. Like I wake up just knowing exactly why I had the dream, and it's a it feels like a demon. It's
Mm.
just it's directly pointed at. Actually, I shouldn't say that because it might be from the Lord, but it's painful. It's not.
Mhm.
It's a yeah, it's like resetting a bone every morning or something.
Mhm.
It's like showing me a part of myself or something that's like.
I feel like there's
But
a
at the same time,
I
I'm
feel like
like, I
there's
don't
a
know.
I feel like there's a bone every morning joke to be made.
There you go. Yeah.
Um,
I
um,
wish more dreams were like that, but they're not.
um, yeah, though. So this idea like of there's two languages going on, and they're often kind of happening on different channels, and we need to be able to ascertain both channels and also learn how to harmonize the two. And something what you said about like when you were talking about being in the room with people like businessmen and such, and also just before that we were talking about just in general like being able to like the difficulty of those type of situations, how something really interesting is going on there, I think, in terms of how when we perceive, I mean, this kind of change is a little bit of a change of topic away from this aspect of the weave that we're on
You got to weave it out. So
about eurythmy and such, but like this idea that you can see almost like different versions of somebody that are encoded in the version you're looking at. So it's like if you and it's also this idea of separating that we fight against spirit, like we fight against spiritual forces, not flesh and blood. So like to be able to see the spirit that's possessing somebody or whatever, or that's shining through someone's eurythmy, then uh and to be able to distinguish that from like kind of the essence of that person or something is, I think, important. But particularly this idea where you can almost by ascertaining the patterns, you can see into their past.
Yeah.
You can like karmic perception is the way that Steiner would have talked about it, like to perceive the karmic habits and stuff that's happening in somebody, and such that and Galahad would talk about it in terms of constellation, where you can see like the past and the future in a sense, and you could almost this was super important for me. Like this was just one of the spiritual insights that I had before I was like paying attention to this stuff more intentionally, which was that you can see everyone as like a little kid almost. Like you can see little if you remember that everyone is a child, like at heart. And in one sense that like in the future you can see like the eschatological version of them, which is a child of God, just like abiding in the glory of creation. And then there's another way of seeing into the past where you see that they're just an innocent child who grew up and is playing the adult game, but they're actually just a
Yeah.
child. And I think both of those are very interesting because when we see that, it kind of calls that part of them out. And I think it also connects in that way of like harmonizing I think it somehow connects in terms of harmonizing the two languages, but that's a bit of a
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting because I feel like I'm agreeing with everything you're saying, but I also want to like add a bunch of like caveats for safety or something, where I'm like,
yeah.
just because all of that's true, it's like, um, it's not always best to strive to see those things in people. Like if you
Mhm.
can't, like if you're interacting with someone and
Yeah, that's
you,
fair.
you can start making assumptions, right? And then it's off-putting. at the very least if you're wrong. It's
Well,
often off-putting if you're right too. But like
yeah.
so there's a sense in which like I don't know. Well, the one thing I want to say is like your mileage may vary in a very large way, right? Like
I think more
even
so what it's that we're called to like perceive the other person as God perceives them, kind of like what we were saying at the very beginning, like
yeah,
to the best of our ability. Like,
yeah, that's the thing that's kind of I'm wondering about, I guess, is like I'm not sure if it should necessarily be positioned as the thing to do for everyone. You know, it's like I don't know. I don't know why that's coming up for me right now, but it's like um
I think there's something to that. Like, I don't know exactly what it is, but I could
it's
see
like
it. It
but
kind
it's
of,
also
it's kind of like what you
sorry.
were saying about how it's just like there's not really a point in trying to make. We should be cautious at least when it comes to like grand, uh, you know, prescriptions.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting to me the way in which like descriptions can so quickly become prescriptions, right? Because
Mm, that's true.
I'm almost like I kind of made that move when I took kind of what you were saying as like advice for everyone, you know, which is like um but it's just true, right? Like but then there's just also the aspect of like I think you and I both understand that moment, but I think maybe the reason I'm bringing it up is because it's like it's always struck me as well here I guess I've been I've been blessed and saved in two different ways here. One is I didn't know that that was like a thing that other people didn't have that much, or maybe I did know that other people didn't have it, but I didn't know that the degree to which I could sense other people's stories and stuff like that was like unique. And I guess it's weird to say that because it sounds like bragging or something, but in my experience, it's not. I don't feel braggy when I say it because it if there's one thing that I could point to that would say like why maybe is it easier for me to see that kind of stuff in people, it's just because I've suffered in so many different ways and I've tortured myself in so many different ways, you know, and it's like
Yeah, that's fair.
like I don't, you know, if someone's had just kind of like a fairly good life and the person that they are just kind of gets along with most people and it doesn't bother them when they don't feel that connection, um I think that they have access to things I don't have, so I
I
wouldn't
think
want to
about
like
I think about this as the direction that humanity is evolving.
mm,
So I do indeed think that you are, in a sense, saying that you are more evolved than most people.
yeah, so
And
I don't see it that way at
I'm
all.
putting those words in your mouth because
Yeah.
because I think that's a good way of framing it. Because, but also, I think it's a beautiful way that you phrase it because it's true that, in a sense, what I'm talking about is like, uh, I think about this as like how does humanity evolve? Through suffering. And it's like the suffering and by dying to the better versions of ourselves, which might be through our suffering, that is how uh
Well, it's not just pure
that is
suffering.
how humanity is transfigured. And
It's
like
not. It can't just be suffering though.
that's true, yeah.
Because if it's just suffering,
Yeah, it's
then
also yeah, well it's also like learning the importance of love. Like over time you've like
I
learned,
well,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say I think it's more important than that. It's not more important than learning how to love, but I this is this is where I would want to just kind of wave the flag of absurdism in some small regard because it's like what's actually required for um the kind of evolution that you're talking about. And I don't like the that's the parts of Steiner that I don't there's something in me that I just don't like about the kind of um and I got to be honest, I don't like this about some of the Galahad stuff or and some of the kind of like why can't I think of it right now, but the word astrology stuff. Something really grinds my gears about um saying something like the next stage of human evolution will be this, right? Like there's something just weird that kind
Well,
of
isn't that what Christ did?
uh yes, in some ways. Um, but I don't like yeah, like it's just a way in which I'm not totally sure in all instances that like I'm right about all of those things. It's very likely that those, people who say things like that are just seeing something that I'm not seeing. Like I'm just I don't have the kind of, I'm
Yeah,
not blessed with
I'm
clairvoyance.
not trying to like box you into
Um,
here.
yeah, but it's more I'm why am I pointing at that? Yeah, because I don't like the idea that like I'm ahead of the curve, I guess. It's
I think
it's
you are,
more
Mr. McMosive. I think you're ahead of the curve,
um
at
but
least to some degree.
yeah. I think there's also an element of like well, evolution just puts it in the kind of like species um
Mhm. It kind of
Darwin.
disenchants it a bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. But
Which
yeah, it's I think yeah, the real thing that I wanted to say what is that it's like what what's required to get to that next step, not for like the human race, but for each individual is actually a um it's kind of like Jordan Peterson 101, but it's more difficult to do than one might think. But it's the idea of a good sacrifice, a willing sacrifice, a
Yeah.
living sacrifice. And so there's the absurdity of sacrificing what you love most and what you think is most important, but you also have to have the belief that you're going to get it back or get back the better version of what you gave up. So, um, yeah,
Yeah.
that,
No,
yeah. So
yeah,
it's
I
just,
definitely think caveats are, you know, various caveats may be appropriate. Um,
but then also, yeah, like to your point, like it's not, I say all of that stuff and it's not like I don't have any eschatological beliefs, that like, I don't, there are things that I think will happen and won't happen, but, um, yeah, that's a part, I guess, of my like that's not a strong part of my faith, I would say. Is like I'm not one of the Christian who's like I know exactly what all of the signs of the times mean and this is
yeah,
what's
well, I don't
going
know if
on.
I don't know if I'd say that.
Even though I pretend to be like that on the internet sometimes, it's like, I'm more just like I don't know what the fuck's going on, but
Hmm.
maybe if I just try to remember that one uh rainy morning when God came to me on my front porch, I could remember it all. Maybe not.
Yeah. Well, well,
And I still don't know why your YouTube got taken down.
yeah, I was just trying to think about how we might weave this back around.
My speeches last a long time because of the weave. I mean, I weave stories into it. And if you just read a teleprompter, nobody's going to be very exciting. You got to weave it out. So but you always have to, as you say, you always have to get right back to it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's no good. But the weave is very, very important.
Well, and I still have more to tell you about the whole hurricane situation. So you should tell me about YouTube, and then we can talk again soon, and I'll tell you all about the hurricanes.
Okay. Okay, yeah. All that was all that was a wonderful weave with regard to the fact that this is being recorded.
Very few weavers around, but it's a big strain on your. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
I would love to probably see this again, though, because I do think that you said some stuff that really was important for me. The one I'm remembering right now is that it's not just that God's not always seeing us; He's also always with us. I forgot He was here, which to forget He was here means that I forgot I was here, right?
Hmm.
And so, yeah, that's huge. But yeah, there was a couple things I wanted to remember. So
In that last regard, that point, I would recommend Michael Martin recently posted a video. We were talking about like other worlds, and basically he was talking about this idea of God's presence in the frame of Gnosticism, where it's like there's the false world that's been pulled over our eyes by the powers that be, and the true world, which is God's presence, sometimes shines through.
wow.
And
And I really like that. I would recommend that video.
We have those experiences where we see something else. We see, another world, right? A new world opens up. And it opens up in the world that you had always observed, but had not seen this experience come through. Very often it's compared to falling in love, right? Where something radical breaks through the world. Radical and beautiful breaks through the world. And sometimes that other world might be like the other world of myth and legend and fairies and, green men. But I think that other world can also be the world that could be. The world that could be. And we could say it's like seeing the unfallen world. That's what Sophia, in a way, you can say is part of the regeneration of the world. So to see that, right, to have that revelation that can open up so much in the way of possibility, but also in the hope for a better world.
But,
So the Gnostics weren't wrong; they were just misguided.
yeah. Or yeah, something like that. Yeah.
All right, dude. I love you. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go eat some
Thank you,
food.
man. Super nice catching up. Let's do it again soon. Because I do want to hear about
The
I wanna
hurricane.
hear about all the sus shit that happened. Or the non-sus, or the whatever happened.
I'll give you the whole rundown one of these days, brother.
Yeah, cool. I'm glad that you're back in your house and such, and
Yeah,
yeah.
lots to be grateful for. But yeah, I'll see you later.
You too, Mike.
Bye.